Welcome back to Not So Grand Garage. Today we're out of the shop and in the back room of the house. We are going to give a little update on our baby chicks, and I wanted to touch base on a few things that we've learned being new chick owners. Uh, there's quite a bit that we've picked up on. Figured we'd pass it along. So let's get started. So, first thing we learned was these little girls like to make a mess. Um, we will clean out their little container here at first, the first week, uh, 4 and 5 times a day. And we weren't using the bedding that's in there now. For the first few days, all we were using was paper towel and cardboard. We'd put a couple layers of cardboard down and then go over it with just plain white paper towels. It's a lot easier to clean up, and they don't try to eat it as much as they try to pick at this pine stuff. That way, anyways, until they learn where their food is, what their food is, where their water is, just makes it easier on them, and it makes it easier to make sure everything's going smoothly. So yeah, makes it a lot easier to keep it clean too. So it takes a couple minutes to pull out the paper towel, throw it away, reline it, and yeah, it's easy. After a week, we waited a week. Some people suggest just a few days, but after a week, we went to this type of bedding. It's the larger flake, so the birds can't eat it, or at least they don't mess with it as much as the fine flake stuff. The fine flake, they can actually eat it, so we'll stay away from that until they get a little bigger. And once they get bigger, we'll go to the fine flake because it breaks down easier for the deep bedding method we're going to be using in their coop. Let's talk about keeping them warm. In the store, it's pretty common. You'll see a heat lamp set up, and that's a pretty traditional way of doing it. But this here is a heated brooder plate, and after watching a bunch of videos on YouTube and doing a lot of research, this is a safer method. It's a little bit more of an investment. I think I've got 50 or 60 bucks in this, which it came with a little top piece to keep them from getting on top and making a mess on it. But it's adjustable in height, and it won't get them too hot, so they can get out from underneath it, get away from it. Much less of a fire hazard, and it doesn't use hardly any power. I think this thing only draws 20 watts or something like that. And they're very content under it. They spent a lot of time under it when they were little, and well, they spend a lot of time under it now still. But I also want to show you this little girl here. This one right here. If you watched our chick pen video, you notice she was the one that was falling asleep upright. She wasn't getting around very well, or she wasn't moving around very well. She wasn't very energetic, and she spent a lot of time under the brooder plate when she was back in the pen. She wasn't eating very well. We were keeping an eye on her, and I decided to do a little research. And I talked to a few people. I said, you know, sometimes you might have a bird that just naturally grows slower. This one was quite a bit smaller, even though they were all bought at the same time. But I hadn't ever seen this one really eat much. And after doing a little bit of research on how she was acting, I decided to try and syringe feed her with just raw egg yolk. Might sound weird, but that's the suggested thing. So I literally sit with this little girl who's now pigging out on her own on the couch for an hour and a half, a little drop on the end of her beak, and she'll eat it. And we went on like that for, like I said, about an hour and a half, and then I put her back in here. The next morning I come back here and she's pretty well bouncing around like the rest of them. and she's eating on her own now. She's drinking on her own now. From what I've read, or from the research I did, more than likely she didn't get the nutrition she needed right after she was hatched. So that slowed her down. But giving her a little boost with that egg yolk, there's some other things you can use too, has got her back on track, it looks like. She's eating great, and she's using the restroom great. No problems there. She's clean, so I think we're good there. So let's talk about waters and feeders. As you can see, I've got this water container here set up on a block. That is because with this bedding material, they just love to kick this material up in the water. You'll see I've fed these guys a lot, or girls. I've fed them from my hand quite a bit. And they don't run away, and they like to get petted and everything else. So they're pretty content with me being around them now. And they'll even climb up on my hands at times. I've also found a really good snack for them. If you take their chick food and wet it down, these chicks go crazy for it. But anyways, hey, now calm down. You'll notice there's some flakes of the bedding material in there already. This one here's checking out. But before I put this little block in here, they would fill this up at least once an hour. I'd have to come back here, take this out, clean all the flakes out of it, put it back. They'd fill it up right off the bat again. So I set it up on a block, and it's been like that for probably half the day so far, and that's all the mess they've made with it. They'll climb up on the block to drink. So it's working good, and so far they haven't been knocking the water container over yet. But from what I hear, that's coming, so we'll see how that works out. Now the feeder. We had this feeder right here to begin with, the open bowl style, just like the water. I never got the bottle for it. I just bought the bottom. I bought it the same time I bought the water container, and set them up at the same time. This one here, avoid it. They like to get on top of it, and they like to use the bathroom in their food, and you end up throwing away food and changing it out all the time. So for the same price, or even cheaper, you can get one with holes in it like this, and it makes it harder for the chicks to get up here and stand, so they don't make a mess in their food as much. And yeah, keeps the food cleaner, and it's just less maintenance for you. So I suggest doing that. Something else I learned pretty well right off the bat is from another video, a channel called Oak Abode. She's got a lot of great information on it, on raising backyard chickens and everything, so highly suggest you check them out. But yeah, if you take your chicks and pick them up, and when you first get them, dip just the tip of their beak in the water and let them take a drink. Make sure they're drinking. That will let them know where the water is, and will teach them pretty well right off the bat how to drink. Seems kind of crazy to do it, but it worked. They picked it up real quick, and I haven't had to mess with it since. So same with the food. Once they learn where it's at, they're pretty well little skittish, aren't you? But they'll pretty well take care of themselves. You'll notice that our container here is still an open top, but they've been kind of flapping their wings and scooting around quite a bit. They haven't quite figured out that they could pretty easily get out of this if they wanted to yet. So another thing you're going to need is a way to cover this up. What I'm planning on doing is just build a little wood frame, window screen, aluminum or fiberglass window screen, something like that. You get it from a hardware store for pretty cheap, and just make a little cover. I may hinge it as well in the middle so we can open it up just to get to their water and stuff. And that'll keep them inside, and it won't hurt them if they run into it. Also, I suggest keeping another container of similar size so you can take, whenever you need to clean their container out, especially with this pine bedding, cleaning it out, you're going to want to replace all of it. So you'll have to get the chicks out, get their food out, get their water out, get everything out of here, and clean it out really well. So, but with just the paper towel and stuff, it's not too much of a big deal. You can just you can move them around, pick the paper towels up, put new layers in, and it's not a problem. But yeah, keep another container around of similar size so you can just transfer the chicks and everything into it while you're cleaning, and it doesn't have to have bedding in it or anything like that. They're not going to stay in there for but a few minutes, so that just makes it easier on you. So I wanted to show you what I meant with the snack I was talking about, just wetting down their food. So I've got a little yogurt container that's we just cleaned out. Take their regular chick food and fill the cup up with water. Just let it sit out for about 5 minutes, and it will soak up all the water and get mushy, just like so. And notice they're all in there, right? They're under the brooder plate. They're not paying much attention, but I can put a little of this on my hand. And they know what it is. As soon as one of them comes out, they go crazy for it. And they'll be climbing all over my hand, and they'll start almost fighting each other for it. But I can move my hand around, and they chase me to get this stuff. And this one's climbing up on here trying to knock the others away. Hey, get out of there, let some others have it. But hey, you've already got the chick food, you've got water, makes a snack for them, and it builds a bit of bond with these guys, or girls. I gotta get used to saying that. And they trust my hand being in with them now more so than they did when they were, more so than a week ago. So it doesn't freak them out as much, and they're getting to the point, like I said, they'll climb up in my hand. And yeah, one thing, I get down. One thing also to remember, anytime you've handled your birds, be sure to wash your hands. And anytime you handle their food and handle the birds, clean out the pen, be sure to keep your hands clean. Yeah. Our little girl is still sleeping quite a bit, but she's eating a lot better, and she's getting up, she's more active. And she will come out with all the other birds and eat. And she's starting to fend for herself a little bit better, instead of just standing around sleeping. You can see her kind of poking her head out there, whereas before she wouldn't do that at all. That little syringe trick made a world of difference in how she's been acting. So hopefully she'll start thriving, put some weight on. You do want to make sure that this isn't cold, just room temperature. So I made a little too much up, so I'll keep it in I'll put it in a little bag and keep it in the refrigerator, and I'll warm it up a little bit the next time I use it. I'll only do that once, and then I'll pitch it, and next time I'll make a lot less, because it doesn't take much, and they don't need to eat this stuff all the time. It's just a snack. Keep them on the dry food, or they'll get picky. We don't want that. As you can tell, now every time I come by, they're looking at me, wondering what's going on. And anytime I put my hand anywhere near them, here they come. They're hey, there's nothing left. There's nothing left. But another really common thing to keep an eye out for is called pasty butt. It sounds kind of funny, but it's what it sounds like. They will get their excrement stuck to their rear ends, and it can actually kill them. So keep an eye out for it. Make sure their bottoms stay clean. I haven't had any issues with these girls so far. They've all been staying clean. I've been keeping an eye on them for it. But if you do start noticing any kind of buildup on their backsides, just use a cloth with some warm water on it and just clean them off. Don't pull on it or anything like that, but just clean them off, and that's all it takes. There's nothing real difficult about it. And there's quite a few videos out there showing how to do that exactly. We haven't had to deal with it, otherwise I'd show you, but yeah, check that out and keep an eye out for it. Another thing that I've noticed is that I wasn't exactly prepared for is how quickly these little girls are growing. All but the little yellow one have doubled in size in a week. And here in another week, they will probably be close to double the size they are now. This container should be good enough for these 6 birds until they go out to the coop, I would think. But yeah, they grow fast, they eat a lot, they do make a lot of messes, so be ready for that. But it's fun. It's fun. It's not super difficult. There's nothing crazy. Once they get going, once they're eating, once they're drinking, they pretty well take care of themselves. Keep their little container cleaned out, and keep an eye on them. Make sure none of them are falling behind in growth. Make sure none of them are acting overly tired. They should all, if they're all purchased about the same time, they should all grow pretty equally, and they should all be acting pretty similarly. If you notice, similarly, yeah, something like that. If you notice one of them falling behind, one of them not growing as well, one of them not having as much energy as the other one, so on and so forth, you may have a problem. So just pay attention to them. But yeah, there's not a whole lot to it. Well, with all that said, I think I'm going to call it off here. We'll be keeping you up to date on them. It'll probably be 3 or 4 weeks before they go out to the coop, which we'll put them in the coop and leave them in the coop for a couple days before letting them out in the run once we get all that built, so they get used to their new home. But yeah, we'll keep you updated on how they're coming along, if we have any problems, anything that comes up. But so far, so good. Can't really complain. And it's pretty rewarding. The kids and the wife are really hooked on them so far. The kids really enjoy them. So yeah, I think this is going to be good. But anyways, if you haven't already, please subscribe. We appreciate you watching.